Ever felt like you're surrounded by actors, each playing their carefully crafted role? I know I have. People wear masks every day, presenting versions of themselves they want others to see, saying the right things, smiling at the right moments. But beneath these performances lies a different reality, the true thoughts, feelings, and intentions that most people never reveal directly. I've spent years observing human behavior, drawing from ancient Stoic wisdom while applying it to our modern world. What I've discovered has transformed how I navigate both personal relationships and professional environments. Today, I want to share these insights with you, not to manipulate others, but to understand them more deeply and connect more authentically. The silent language everyone speaks. Last month, I found myself in a boardroom during a critical merger discussion. Around the polished table sat executives in perfect suits, all nodding in apparent agreement as the presentation unfolded. Their words expressed enthusiasm, but their bodies told a different story. One executive repeatedly touched his neck when discussing timeline commitments. Another's feet pointed toward the door throughout the meeting. A third maintained a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Most revealing was the CEO's micro-expression of concern, a flash of worry that crossed his face for just a fraction of a second when profit projections appeared on screen. This silent language of the body often speaks louder than words. The ancient Stoics understood this well. Epictetus noted, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Most people think they're presenting one image to the world, unaware of how much they're actually revealing through non-verbal cues. I began developing this awareness years ago during my time working in high-pressure sales environments. I noticed how some colleagues could consistently read clients better than others. They seemed to have an almost supernatural ability to know when to push forward and when to back off. What they actually possessed wasn't supernatural at all. It was deep observational skill developed through practice. The first step in reading people is simply paying attention to the full spectrum of communication. Not just words, but tone, pace, gestures, facial expressions, and body positioning. Most of us focus primarily on verbal content, missing the wealth of information expressed through non-verbal channels. The tell me more technique, the gateway to hidden truths. Perhaps the most powerful tool I've discovered for understanding others isn't about what you observe. It's about creating space for people to reveal themselves willingly. I call it the tell me more technique, and its power lies in its simplicity. I first stumbled upon this approach during a particularly tense negotiation with a potential business partner. We had reached an impasse, with both sides becoming increasingly frustrated. Rather than continuing to push my position, I leaned back, softened my expression, and simply said, "I'd like to understand your perspective better. Tell me more about your concerns here." The transformation was immediate and profound. His defensive posture relaxed, his voice dropped to a more natural register, and suddenly, he wasn't just reciting talking points. He began sharing his real worries, fears about how the partnership might affect his core business, concerns about previous failed collaborations, and personal pressures from investors I hadn't known existed. This technique works because most human interaction follows a predictable pattern of guarded exchanges. We've been conditioned to expect debate, judgment, or dismissal when we express our thoughts. When someone instead responds with genuine curiosity and creates space for elaboration, it short-circuits this pattern. People feel a surprising freedom to express what they're actually thinking and feeling. I've refined this approach over years of application in various contexts. The key elements are: first, create psychological safety. Your body language, tone, and facial expression must convey genuine interest without judgment. Lean slightly forward, maintain comfortable eye contact, and keep your expression open. Second, embrace silence. After someone responds to your "tell me more" invitation, resist the urge to immediately fill the space with your own thoughts. Count silently to 5 before responding. This slight pause often encourages them to continue, revealing deeper layers of thought they wouldn't otherwise share. Third, follow emotional threads. When someone shows even subtle signs of emotion, a slight change in voice, a fleeting expression, a shift in energy, gently invite elaboration on that specific point. I noticed you seemed concerned when you mentioned the timeline. Tell me more about that. I've used this approach in countless situations, from understanding my child's reluctance about a new school to uncovering a team member's real objections to a project approach to learning a client's unstated needs. Each time, it reveals information that would have remained hidden in typical conversation. The status test. Character revealed through treatment of others. While the "tell me more" technique helps people reveal themselves willingly, some of the most honest insights come when people don't realize they're being observed. This brings us to what I call the status test. How people treat those they perceive as having lower status or less power. This insight saved me from a potentially disastrous business partnership 3 years ago. I had been impressed by a potential partner's credentials, vision, and apparent values alignment. During our initial meetings, he was articulate, responsive, and seemed genuinely collaborative. Then came our third meeting, lunch at an upscale restaurant. Within minutes, I witnessed a complete personality transformation in how he treated the waitstaff. His voice took on a dismissive tone. He made minimal eye contact, interrupted repeatedly, and showed visible irritation at minor service delays. When his meal arrived slightly different than ordered, his disproportionate frustration revealed something his polished professional mask had concealed. The Stoic philosopher Seneca observed that the way a person treats their inferiors tells you everything about them. This remains one of the most reliable character insights available to us. Someone can maintain a carefully crafted image when dealing with peers, superiors, or people they want to impress. But their treatment of those they perceive as beneath them, service workers, junior employees, support staff, reveals their true character. I've observed this principle consistently in multiple contexts. The executive who is charming in the boardroom but berates their assistant when deadlines approach. The date who is attentive and engaging with you but snippy and impatient with the server. The colleague who is collaborative with team members but dismissive of building maintenance staff. The psychology behind this is straightforward. We tend to be on our best behavior when we perceive social or professional benefit in doing so. When that incentive disappears, when we interact with people we don't think can help or hurt our status, our true values and character emerge. This doesn't require elaborate observation. Simply pay attention to how someone speaks to service workers, especially when minor problems arise. Their treatment of junior team members, particularly in high-pressure situations. Whether they acknowledge and respect support staff. Their behavior when they think higher status people aren't watching. These moments of interaction with lower status individuals provide some of the most honest windows into someone's true character. And unlike many other techniques for understanding people, this one requires no special skills, just attention and awareness. The emotional baseline method. Detecting significant shifts. Everyone has what I think of as an emotional baseline. Their typical patterns of expression, energy level, vocal tone, and body language. Once you've established someone's baseline, deviations from it become powerful signals of internal states they may not be verbally expressing. I first recognized the importance of this during my time managing investment teams. One particularly stoic analyst rarely showed emotion and maintained consistently measured speech patterns. During a routine project update, I noticed a subtle shift. His speech tempo increased slightly, and he used more hand gestures when discussing a specific market sector. This deviation, barely perceptible to most observers, signaled unusual excitement. Following this cue led to discovering a high-potential investment opportunity he hadn't directly highlighted. His emotional shift revealed what his words didn't. Emotional baseline recognition requires first building a mental model of someone's typical presentation. Their usual speaking pace, volume and pitch, typical energy level and animation, standard gestures and movement patterns, default facial expressiveness, normal conversation engagement level. Once you've established this baseline through observation, significant deviations become informative signals. The usually talkative colleague who becomes quiet, the typically composed manager whose voice slightly raises, the generally confident presenter who suddenly increases self-touching behaviors like adjusting clothes or touching their face. These deviations often indicate emotional states people are trying to conceal. Anxiety about a project deadline, excitement about an opportunity, discomfort with a decision, or uncertainty about information. I've found this particularly valuable in group settings where people may be hesitant to express dissenting views. During team discussions, I pay attention to subtle shifts from emotional baselines when specific topics arise. The team member who becomes unusually still when a particular approach is suggested. The colleague whose typical enthusiasm dampens when discussing a specific timeline. These are invaluable cues to underlying concerns that might otherwise go unaddressed. Developing this awareness takes practice, but yields remarkable insights. Start by consciously establishing baselines for people you interact with regularly. Then simply notice deviations without immediately interpreting them. Over time, patterns emerge that allow for more accurate understanding of unspoken thoughts and feelings. The past patterns principle, history as the key to the present. One of the most profound insights from both Stoic philosophy and modern psychology is that current behavior often reflects past experiences. As Marcus Aurelius observed, look back over the past with its changing empires that rose and fell, and you can foresee the future too. Understanding someone's historical patterns provides a powerful lens for comprehending their present actions. I've seen this principle transform seemingly inexplicable behaviors into understandable responses once past context becomes clear. Consider my experience with a brilliant creative director whose work I admired. Her designs were exceptional, but her response to feedback was puzzlingly defensive, sometimes derailing productive collaboration. This pattern remained mysterious until a long-term colleague shared context. Her previous role had involved a boss who would publicly undermine her work and take credit for her ideas. What seemed like oversensitivity was actually an adaptive response to past professional trauma. With this understanding, I could address the underlying pattern. By changing how feedback was delivered and explicitly acknowledging her ownership of ideas, the defensive response is diminished, allowing her talent to flourish. This pattern recognition applies across personal and professional contexts. The colleague who hoards information likely experienced past situations where sharing led to personal loss. The friend who struggles with commitment often has a history of abandonment or betrayal. The team member who avoids public recognition may come from experiences where standing out led to negative consequences. These patterns aren't random, they're adaptive responses that made sense in previous contexts. People develop specific behaviors as protection against past pain, disappointment, or failure. Even when they enter new environments where these adaptations aren't necessary, the patterns persist. Recognizing these patterns requires patience and observation over time. Listen for recurring themes in someone's stories. Notice consistent emotional reactions to specific situations. Identify triggers that seem to activate disproportionate responses. When you understand someone's historical patterns, you gain insight into the why behind their current behaviors. This doesn't just make their actions more predictable, it allows for greater empathy and more effective interaction. The unguarded moment. Truth in transition. Some of the most honest glimpses into someone's true thoughts and feelings come during what I call transition moments. Those brief windows when people move between social contexts and temporarily drop their performative masks. These moments occur naturally throughout the day, the seconds after ending a phone call before realizing others are present. The expression that crosses someone's face when first receiving news before they compose their response. The brief window when someone enters a room before noticing they have an audience. The transition between professional settings and personal settings. I first recognized the power of these moments years ago, while working with a senior leader known for his unwavering confidence and optimism. Following a particularly challenging board meeting, I happened to see him in the hallway before he noticed my presence. In that brief, unguarded moment, his expression revealed profound exhaustion and worry, emotions completely absent from his public persona. This glimpse into his private experience completely changed my understanding of the pressures he faced. These transition moments are valuable because they bypass the conscious self-presentation most people maintain in social and professional settings. Before people switch on their social performance, they briefly reveal more authentic states. Observing these moments doesn't require elaborate techniques, just attention at the right times. Notice someone's expression when they first read an email before they formulate their response. Watch the transitions between meetings when people momentarily let down their professional guard. Pay attention to the first few seconds of a video call before someone fully adopts their online persona. The ethics here matter greatly. This observation isn't about catching people in moments of vulnerability for advantage. Rather, it's about developing a more complete, compassionate understanding of others' true experiences and challenges. Priority revelation. What triggers strong emotions? Nothing reveals someone's true priorities quite like their emotional reactions. As Epictetus noted, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When something genuinely matters to someone, their emotional response is immediate and difficult to suppress, even briefly. I witnessed this principle clearly during a seemingly routine product planning meeting. A team member who typically presented as detached and analytical had an uncharacteristically strong reaction when a particular feature was suggested for removal. This emotional spike, just a moment of heightened energy and slightly raised voice, revealed that this specific feature held personal significance beyond its business value. Later conversation revealed he had been the original champion for that feature, seeing it as his most significant contribution to the product. What seemed like a straightforward business discussion had triggered an emotional response because it threatened something tied to his professional identity and sense of value. This principle applies universally. People's strongest emotional reactions, whether positive or negative, point directly to their core priorities and values. The colleague who lights up when discussing certain projects, the friend whose energy shifts when particular topics arise, the family member who becomes defensive around specific subjects. These emotional signals reveal what truly matters beneath stated priorities. To apply this insight effectively, notice disproportionate emotional responses, energy that doesn't match the apparent significance of the trigger. Pay attention to repeated emotional patterns around specific topics. Observe which discussions generate enthusiasm versus which create distance. Watch for defensive reactions, which often signal values under perceived threat. Understanding someone's emotional triggers gives you insight into what they truly value, beyond what they might consciously express. This allows for more meaningful connection and more effective collaboration by addressing underlying priorities rather than just surface-level statements. The meta-awareness of Stoic observation. The approaches I've shared aren't just techniques, they're expressions of a philosophy that values deeper understanding of human nature. The ancient Stoics were, in many ways, master psychologists who recognized that most human behavior stems from desires, fears, and conditioning that operate below conscious awareness. As Marcus Aurelius advised, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig." This applies not just to self-knowledge, but to understanding others. Beneath the surface presentations lie deeper currents of motivation, fear, hope, and meaning that shape behavior in predictable ways. Developing this meta-awareness of human behavior patterns doesn't make the world more cynical. It makes it more comprehensible and often more compassionate. When you understand that someone's aggression likely stems from fear, or that their withdrawal probably reflects past hurt, your response can address the real issue rather than just the surface behavior. I've found that these observation skills bring two significant benefits. First, they help navigate complex social and professional environments more effectively. Understanding unspoken dynamics and motivations allows for more skillful interaction and better outcomes. More importantly, though, these skills foster deeper empathy. Seeing beyond someone's social performance to their underlying hopes, fears, and struggles creates space for genuine connection. In a world where much of our interaction remains at the surface level, this deeper understanding becomes increasingly valuable. Bringing Stoic observation into modern contexts. The principles I've shared transcend specific environments, but their application evolves with our changing world. In our digital age, people reveal themselves in new contexts that the ancient Stoics couldn't have imagined. Consider how these principles apply in virtual environments. In video meetings, the unguarded moments often happen in the first seconds after joining, before someone realizes they're visible. Their home environment, visible in the background, often reveals priorities and values not expressed professionally. Response timing to messages often indicates actual priorities beyond stated ones. Social media presents its own windows into authentic behavior. The content someone engages with emotionally through likes, shares, or angry responses often reveals values they might not explicitly state. Late-night posting often contains more authentic expression than carefully curated daytime content. Even email communication contains revealing patterns. Response time to different people or topics. The contrast between formal professional emails and hurried messages sent from mobile devices. The people consistently included or excluded from communications. All these provide insights into true priorities and relationships. As our interaction increasingly spans physical and digital environments, the observational principles remain consistent. Notice patterns. Watch for inconsistencies between stated and revealed priorities, and pay attention to unguarded moments of authentic expression. The responsibility of deeper understanding. This knowledge comes with ethical responsibility. The insights I've shared can be used to manipulate and exploit, but that approach ultimately undermines their true value. The Stoic perspective guides us to use understanding for building genuine connection and mutual benefit, not advantage. I've found that the most valuable application of these observational skills isn't in gaining power over others, but in creating environments where people feel truly seen and understood. When you can recognize someone's unspoken concerns, acknowledge their authentic priorities, and understand their past patterns, you can interact with them in ways that address their real needs, not just their stated positions. This deeper understanding transforms relationships. Conflicts become opportunities for addressing underlying needs rather than winning arguments. Collaboration improves when unspoken concerns can be gently acknowledged. Trust deepens when people feel genuinely understood beyond their social performances. In personal relationships, these observational skills help break cycles of misunderstanding. Recognizing that a partner's withdrawal might reflect past hurt rather than present rejection creates space for healing rather than escalation. Seeing that a friend's excessive planning stems from anxiety about uncertainty allows for compassionate support rather than frustration. Final thoughts: the journey of understanding. Developing these observational skills is a lifelong practice rather than a destination. Like the ancient Stoics, we recognize that understanding human nature, both others and our own, requires ongoing attention and reflection. Begin simply by slowing down your responses in conversation. Create space for others to reveal themselves more fully. Notice the unguarded moments in daily interactions. Pay attention to emotional spikes that reveal underlying priorities. Watch how people treat those they don't need to impress. As you develop these skills, you'll likely find yourself less reactive and more responsive in your interactions. You'll begin seeing beyond surface behaviors to the human experiences that generate them. You'll develop greater patience with difficult personalities when you recognize their behaviors as adaptive responses to past experiences. Perhaps most importantly, you'll build more authentic connections. In a world increasingly characterized by performance and presentation, the ability to see and acknowledge someone's authentic self becomes increasingly rare and valuable. The ancient Stoics sought to understand human nature not to control it, but to live in harmony with it. In developing your ability to read people, aim for this same wisdom, not manipulation, but understanding, not advantage, but connection, not judgment, but compassion. Remember, we're all wearing masks to various degrees. The art isn't in tearing them off forcefully, but in creating spaces where they can be gently set aside, allowing for moments of genuine human connection in a world that increasingly settles for its simulation. If these insights resonated with you, you're invited to be part of something bigger. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of mindful observers. By liking and sharing this content, you're not just supporting the channel, you're helping others develop deeper, more meaningful connections in their daily lives. Turn on notifications to never miss new perspectives on human behavior, relationships, and personal growth. Each week, we explore practical wisdom that you can apply immediately in your life. Remember, understanding others better starts with a single observation. Let's grow together.